This is the Full and Bloom interview with bassist Tony Franklin. You can listen to excerpts from this interview at fullandbloom.com. So tell me what's new and what's in the future.
Well, what's happening right now, doing a bunch of different recording sessions. I have my home studio, and it's been pretty cool. I just keep busy with a lot of different stuff while also working on a bass instrumental album, long awaited, and so that's getting that finished. I'm always busy with different things. I just completed a rock and roll fantasy camp with the Alice in Chains and Stone Temple Pirate guys. I don't know if you know about rock and roll fantasy camp. You may do. But
I do, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. I've done quite a few of them, and they have a movie coming out, a movie documentary coming out hopefully later this year, and I've been heavily involved in that. They've shot a lot of footage of me both behind the scenes and with my band, so that's been an ongoing thing. There's so many different things that are currently going on. It's I'm in the process of writing a book and all sorts of things. It's crazy and cool, and I like to be busy with different things. So that's pretty much my present, and always doing like one-off different gigs. I'm actually playing up in LA this about 10 days time, the 7th, 8th, and 9th, at a very cool thing, which is not my typical kind of thing, but it's fun because it's with friends and great musicians. Stephen Perkins plays drums from Jane's Addiction, and then Kenny Olsen on guitar, and some other people. And it's actually a thing called Think Floyd. And what it is, it's at this place called the Wisdom, Wisdom with an E, LA, which is part of the art district in downtown LA, and attached to the arts, what do they call it, the arts University of the Arts, or whatever it is, in downtown. And they put on this huge art kind of display, 3D thing in a huge dome. And it's pretty trippy, and people will just lay back on couches and they pack them into places. About 600 people in there, and they're having to turn people away. And we play the music of Pink Floyd, and it's perfect music for doing that. So, I'm involved in a lot of different things, which is, I like that. The sessions I do vary from almost new agey pop stuff to heavy prog stuff. So I've always liked to play a wide diversity of music. So
yeah,
and then.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you have any questions about that? So I was going to go on to the future stuff.
Sure, yeah. Go on to the future stuff.
Future stuff. Well, in about 3 weeks' time, I'm heading out for a month with Jason Bonham on his Led Zeppelin evening. And he has a regular bass player, a guy called Dorian Hartsong, but he had some family commitments or something. And so Jason and I go way back and to the film days, actually, and so he called me and said if I wanted to do it. And so I'm going to be out with that for a month, diving deep into Zeppelin like I've never done before, and part of it's opening for Peter Frampton some of the own shows, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Beyond that, in the bigger picture, there's been a lot of rumblings about John Sykes and everything, and I getting back together, which we have been jamming, and with the intention of doing some tour dates, not as Blue Murder, but as his thing, which would mean that we'd play a broader spectrum of his music, from Thin Lizzy to Whitesnake, Blue Murder, of course, and new stuff as well. So I think realistically, that will probably be towards the end of this year or early next year. So that's pretty cool.
Does he not want to do Blue Murder? I'm assuming Carmine has, looks like he's available, or is he too busy?
Yeah, John doesn't want to do it because he wants to play a broader spectrum of music. And Carmine, if we're going to do it, wants to just play Blue Murder, you know, and that's okay. It's fine. Who knows? At some point, we may do it in the future. I don't know, but at this point, if John wants to be a little bit more broad because he's been involved in so much great music. I mean, you know, the Whitesnake stuff alone. I mean, nobody plays it like he does. And we've been jamming it, and we've been working with a new drummer, a guy called Fred Boswell Jr., who's phenomenal. And nobody plays that stuff like he does. So it's like, yeah, he's wanted to do this for a while. So I don't know about Blue Murder. It may or may not happen in the future. But this will be the first thing.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking some one-off gigs would be cool. I was even thinking that with the Firm. You had said something even on Twitter the other day, and I thought, man, I think people would just go apeshit over a reunion of the Firm, even if it was just, you know, a handful of gigs in major markets or something, you know. But even Blue Murder, you could do. It seems like if he's around, you know, some occasional one-off gigs would work just fine, you know, instead of a tour.
Well, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I agree to a certain extent, but if you're going to do something like that, I mean, you gotta. We were always very tight and very well rehearsed, and it's not just something that you can just, you know, not do for a couple of months and then do a one-off gig. You really have to put a lot of. It's very physical, that music, and just realizing that by playing the stuff and everything, you're emotionally spent on it all. And so John won't do anything unless it's top notch. So you got to really put in time for that. And so just to do it for a couple of one-off gigs is like, to me, is not really going to serve Blue Murder very well. You do it the full thing or not at all. And the Firm, that's a different matter, I think, because I don't think we're close to that happening. But you just never know in our world. I mean, it was actually close to almost happening in, was before the Led Zeppelin O2 Arena thing happened, which kind of changed the course of everything, really. But there was talk of it, although I heard about it after the fact. So I wasn't involved in any discussions per se about would I want to do this, because my answer is always going to be yes. But you know, the Firm to me would be a cool thing, because back in the day, with the Firm in the early days, it was the first band that Jimmy and Paul have been in since Led Zeppelin and Bad Co. And neither of them touched their old band's material because they wanted to establish the Firm as an entity in its own right and for the music to stand on its own. And I respect them for that. And so, you know, some people say, well, it wasn't like Zeppelin, it wasn't like his Heights. I said, well, he was creating music that was true to that moment. And I think it stands alone in itself. And, you know, and I give great credit to them for not leaning on their old material, because, you know, that would have been easy to do. And so, but now that time has passed, I think you could do the Firm material, and you could do some Zeppelin. The same with Bad Co and everything, and Free. I mean, Jimmy could play that stuff killer. So, you know, it could be a lot broader show. I think it would be really cool, and you could do a few shows in major markets with that, and it would be you know, meaningful. But I don't know. Paul's in a very happy place in his career. He's doing a lot of solo stuff. He did the Free Spirit thing. He's doing Bad Co. I don't know if he wants to, you know, do that, but you just never know. You never know.
How does your friendship begin with Roy Harper?
I'll give you the quick version of that, because there was my first professional gig was in Birmingham, England, and it was a 10-piece dance band called Pete's People, and this was the early 80s, and we were doing just covers, dance music, and everything from 40s 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and the current pop and disco music. I played Funky Town 3 times a night. I don't think I'll ever forget how to play that one. And and so the drummer in that used to work in a music store in the drum department in Hereford, England. And the manager of that music store was, at that time, Roy Harper's manager, or on his team. And so the manager, Roy was doing a session in Birmingham, and they asked, and so the manager asked the drummer in Pete's People to do the session, and he asked, do you know a bass player you can bring along? And that's where I came in. I was, I'd be 20 years old, maybe 19 at the time, and knew nothing about Roy. But anyway, went in and did the session, did 3 songs, and it went well enough, I suppose, because they ended up calling me to see if I wanted to be involved, although it was between me and a more kind of established player at the time, a guy called Dick Cadbury, who he was around about Roy's age and everything, but they went with me because it would bring a new kind of energy to the band. It was kind of like almost a coin toss. But so anyway, ended up doing that first album and some gigs with Roy and subsequent touring and all that. And it went really well, and played on a bunch of Roy's albums, and of course the connection between Roy and Jimmy led ultimately to us playing together with Jimmy and then the film. So it's amazing how things happen. It can go one way or the other, just almost on the flip of a coin sometimes.
What's it like working with him?
He's great. He's funny. He's sharp. He's just a deep thinker. Everything that you would think about from his music, and he's hilarious. I mean, we spent so much time just laughing, and but he's very focused. But he'd also, especially as time went on, would just give me complete freedom. There was one track on, it might be Death or Glory, which was later, 1991, and it's called, I think I'm getting the album right, it's called On Summer's Day. And it was like a very open, a longer piece, and it was just at this point voice and guitar. And as typical of Roy, he's very flow of consciousness in the music, and doesn't always necessarily follow theoretical correctness. It's very much of a flow, and like Jimmy Page, the bar lines would disappear and it would support the song, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, did we miss a beat or something? You don't notice it because it feels very natural, and the song was full of that. And I said, I think I can lay something down on this. And they said, okay, all right. And he just left me to it. And at the end of it, he listened to it and said, wow. I said, I really didn't think that anybody else could play on that. So it was, he and I have a very special, meaningful connection. It's always been that way. And we talk for hours, still do, although not as frequently because he's in Ireland, I'm in the States. And so, we've both got life happening, but we've always maintained a very close relationship. I love him.
You had a long time ago posted a picture of the two of you, and I commented that you guys should have a cigar, and you ended up liking the comment. Not everyone knows that he's the one that sings "Have a Cigar." I know a lot of people know by now, but not enough. I think a lot of people still think it's, Roger Waters.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's him, and wow, what a fantastic job he did. There's actually a documentary about the making of Wish You Were Here, and they talk about that, and Roy's in it as well, and I guess both Gilmore and Roger Waters have had a go at the vocal, and they play some of it in there, and it's It doesn't nearly have the spirit and the emotion and the whole vibe that Roy's version did. He was very close with them, of course, and so he was in the studio when that was being cut, and he said, "Well, I'll have a go at it," and then he delivered that blistering performance. So yeah, not a lot of people know that was him, but wow, yeah, he's a special one. He really is.
I saw that documentary. I loved how Roger Waters was still like, I think given more time, I could have nailed it, which I'm sure he could have, but I do think Roy's, what a performance. I mean, I don't think it could get any better than that.
Oh God, yeah. I didn't want to say that comment about Roger, but I'm glad you did, because yeah, he was a little, he was a little hesitant and felt like he should have done it, but wow, I can't imagine any other performance on there but Roy's. It's just so perfect. And
so he's the one that introduces you to Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
And do you actually remember the first time that you met Jimmy?
Yeah, I do. It was up in Blackpool, England. We're working on Roy's album, which would have turned into whatever happened to Juggler. And it was always very relaxed. Jimmy walked in and we said hi, and that was it. And it was just very relaxed, and we just all about the music, which was perfect. Actually, that environment was perfect, because we're there and we're focusing on Roy's music and just making a great album. And so it was very relaxed and very focused and fun. I mean, we just all had so much fun. It was it was magic, really, and that really played a big part because we were in a working environment and it wasn't Jimmy's own thing. He was able to just focus on it and just play, as was I. We weren't working on his thing or the firm or anything. It was perfect, and so that really played a big part of the vibe of us connecting, which ultimately led to the film, because everything about the film was very organic. There was not like, who should we choose? Who's a great name? Who's that? I mean, Jimmy knew that he wanted to work with Chris Slade, and I believe they'd done some things maybe back in the day, in the session days, because I do believe that Jimmy had actually played on some of the Tom Jones stuff in his session days, which Chris Slade did in those early days. So they knew each other and done some things, and so the story is that Chris Slade got a call from David Gilmour and Jimmy Page on the same day, and Gilmour called first and asked him if he wanted to do his tour. I think it was the About Face tour in 1984, to which Chris said yes, and then Jimmy called Chris later in the day and said, "Hey, I'm just putting this thing together. Would you like to come and have a play?" He said, "Oh, I would love to, but I've just agreed to do this tour." And so he said, "Oh, no worries. I'll wait for you." I mean, that time that he was waiting was the time when I connected with Jimmy, and we had that we connected there. And so by the time we'd done a few gigs with Jimmy and Roy, and the album was done and everything, it was only a couple of weeks, whatever it was, after that Jimmy called me and see if I'd be interested in sitting in on the rehearsal. I wasn't asked to be in the band, I was asked to sit in. And so, they wanted to check me out, see how I hung and see how the vibe was. And so, the timing was perfect. It was just like, they wanted to see what it felt like with me. I mean, Paul had left Jimmy to put the musicians together. And you probably know that Jimmy and Paul had worked together on the Arms tour in '83, and they had a good vibe and a connection together. Sure. And that's where they wrote the song "Midnight Moonlight," which ended up on the Firm album. So they knew they wanted to do something, but Paul had left Jimmy to put together the players. So Yeah, it's amazing, really, and it was always that way. Even with the film, it was very relaxed. It was always just like, hey, we just want to make a great album, and they were very open to my inputs with keyboards and mixing ideas and all that stuff. So it was magical, really. It felt like a real proper band. It was just very very open and all about the vibe.
Is that the connection with David Gilmour? Didn't you almost, was it Chris or through Roy that you were connected to David Gilmour?
I was through Roy again, and actually did a gig with Kate Bush and David Gilmour.
Right.
And David called me for that, and then it was a few weeks after that he called me and asked me if I was available to do Pink Floyd, and because I was on the short list of three guys, him, me, myself, Tony Levin, and Pino Palladino, and those two couldn't do it. And fortunately or unfortunately, I question this all the time because life has its way of pointing you in directions that are sometimes out of your control. I'd signed an agreement, a management agreement, not even a record contract with Blue Murder, just a few days before I got that call from David Gilmour. And so went down to see their management. They looked at it, and I wasn't able to do it. I had to say no. I can't do this, and which was tough. It was really tough, but
I bet.
Went on with Blue Murder and all that life has brought me from then. I truly believe it's for the best. But at the time it's hard. Those things are hard to come to terms and accept that you can't go on tour with a band like Pink Floyd. But I think it was all for the best. It definitely was a tough one, and I had a few beverages that night. But and it wasn't until a few years later when it all kind of clicked and I saw how life had turned out that it's like you get to see a bigger picture, because that's often you don't have that perspective when bad things, supposedly negative or bad things, happen at the time, to be able to have that perspective to see that it was all for the best and everything happened in the right way. So, but at the time, it's tough.
What was it like working with Jimmy Page at that time?
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, just very, very much about getting the vibe and in the studio, and wanted everything to be very fresh. And because we were very well rehearsed going into that first album, so pretty much everything was first or second take. It was very, very spontaneous and fresh, and even the vocals. I mean, Paul was in the same room behind a baffle, not even behind a proper sound booth, intending to lay down guide vocals on a Shure SM57 mic, which is definitely not considered a high-quality microphone.
Right.
But ended up keeping a lot of them because it just had the vibe and it was so good. So, Jimmy was great. It was just he's very focused and the old school. I mean, it was such a pleasure, and I didn't even really appreciate Led Zeppelin at that point, but I was observing all the things that he did, which was, when he's getting his guitar sounds, he would go in and find the sweet spot for the microphone, and it might be just off axis, it might be right in front, it might be down the hallway, or a combination of the two, and he would literally listen, sometimes have his tech play, and then listen for that sweet spot to place the microphone there. And then, he'd go into the control room and get the sound that he wanted. And then the solos, he would just lay down 2 or 3 run-throughs and then comp it and make a complete solo out of the comps. And so he was very, very focused, very creative, and he loves music, and that, so creating it was a real just, I don't know, a joy. It's like but he was also very open to me. I mean, I stayed in when he was laying down the solos, and I don't think that's a typical kind of thing. And I was just observing, and he'd ask me my opinion and everything. I guess with me being fresh ears and not familiar with Zeppelin at all, it gave him some good objectivity, and so it was very cool and just a dream, really. I mean, you can't really, I didn't really fully appreciate all that until way afterwards, when I'm like thinking, wow, I was doing that with Jimmy Page and Paul Rodgers at that level, and I say at the time it just all felt very natural, and just like, this is a band, this is what we do. Very, very special.
Yeah, mind blowing.
But at the time it just felt totally a way of life. It wasn't like, oh wow, I'm doing this with Jimmy Page, he's letting me sit. No, because I wasn't that person, it worked.
It's probably good that you weren't, that you didn't have that kind of background, because most people would be, crapping their pants that they're in the presence of royalty.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it all worked out well.
Did you guys cut that album live?
Everything was played live all together, both albums.
Okay, and even Paul Rodgers would do like one or two takes, even his vocal takes?
Yeah, usually one, because he's just that guy,
Isn't that incredible?
I mean, even You've Lost That Loving Feeling, which to me is one of his stellar performances on that one. That was live, that was all together. And there's a note he hits on that, and I commented this at the time and said I didn't think you could even hit that note. It just doesn't seem like it's in your normal range. It's way up there. And babe, I did it, one of those. And so it's, everything was live, and minimal fixes. I mean, with my bass parts, we'd listen down, and everything was fine. If there was one little bit, I would fix it, but they would keep the vibe. And if you listen closely, they did a few splices, a few edits, the old days of cutting tape.
Sure.
And if you listen to the intro of Closer, the opening track of the first Firm album, you can hear that with my bass, there's an edit right where you got and then the bass comes in. The bass is actually out of tune, and it isn't me playing it out of tune. The bass is actually not tuned properly. I don't remember having tuners. We all just did it by ear. We must have done, but
wow.
I don't know. But it was out of tune. And then when the drums and the bands kick in, it's in tune. And so you'd never know, but I know from that. There's a lot of little things. I remember just about every detail of the album, because it was so hands-on with everything. And so everything was just out of tune. So what? It had a vibe. It felt good, and that's how Jimmy works. And it's so refreshing, because it's often lost these days in digital recording, where everything can be perfect. And you
Absolutely.
Get used to hearing everything perfect, can be tuned and everything, and it sounds wrong if it's not, almost. But so it's what an enlightening experience on so many levels.
Did you ever get to meet Robert Plant while you were in the Firm?
Yeah, I did a couple of times, and right after the Firm, a couple of funny incidents. But right after the Firm, he wanted to. We hung for a little bit, and he wanted to see. He was putting together a new album, and he wanted to see if I had any ideas. And so we hung for a bit. It didn't pan out. But then there's another very funny story, and I saw him randomly in a number of different situations. He's always very cool and very sweet with me. There was one time, this is a great rock and roll story. So it was after the Firm, but the Firm hadn't officially ended. It was 86. We'd done our last gigs. There was no announcement and everything. It was just kind of, I say the Firm never ended. It just never continued. But I I got a call to do an audition for Mick Jagger. He was putting together a solo band. I think the album was She's the Boss. And so, I was, at that point, I was kind of a little bit full of myself, to be honest. I was like, I got this, I played with the film, I played with Jimmy Page, and blah, blah, blah. I got this great history and everything. And you can get a little, and I was just recently off the road, probably about a month or so, and hadn't played that much. And so I get called to do this, and there's a bunch of stuff off his new album. And then there's Miss You from the Stones, which I love that song. And so it's very easy to, now if I was to do that gig, I would absolutely do it on the fretted bass without a hesitation. But then I'm thinking, I'm the fretless guy. This is what I do. I do it all on fretless, or not at all. And so I went to the audition, and anyway, Mick was there, and he was cool and everything. And I look back, and on the drums there's Omar Hakim, who is this monster drummer. He's played with everybody, Weather Report, Journey, and everything you can imagine. And I'm like, whoa, something. And then I look over to my left, and there's Jeff Beck on the guitar. And I'm like, oh God, I'm not like. And anyway, we did a few songs, and it seemed like they were going okay. And then we did Miss You. Now, there's a lot of octave work on that, and octaves are probably the hardest thing to do on the fretless. And so it was the songs going on, and I'm struggling to keep up. And I'm not as road strong as I thought I was. And then it came to this one, which was the last one, and my fingers are hurting and struggling to keep up with the octaves, and I was dragging. And at one point, Mick Jagger turns around on the microphone and says, "Yeah, what is this? A fucking foxtrot?" And oh God! And then Robert Plant walks in and said, "Hey, Tone, how you doing? Jimmy let you out for the day, did he?" And I wished at that point that a hole would have opened up in the ground and swallowed me up, because the film was over, but it wasn't officially known. So, it was just so typical Robert, his dry sense of humor. But that's just one of the experiences in life that you can laugh about later. But he's a very sweet and intelligent, and once again into his music so much. So I've been very fortunate with a lot of the people I've met and played and interacted with.
I'm surprised that it didn't work out with him. I loved his solo records and really bought them all back then. But I thought, man, your bass playing would have really lent itself to his music. I thought it would have fit in well.
Yeah, you would think so, and I agree. It would, but sometimes it's weird, because there've been so many situations where life, especially as an artist, is like a razor's edge. Sometimes things flow effortlessly, and sometimes they're like trying to run underwater, and sometimes the vibe just happens naturally, and sometimes it doesn't. It was very, very natural with the firm and everything, and it never quite felt that way with Robert. And it was probably on my end. I don't know if I was feeling like a little torn because of Jimmy and everything and all that, but it just didn't we didn't quite connect musically. So it's which is all cool, it's all fine. And then there are situations where I should have blown it. Really, I should have. And just because of my lifestyle and different things I was doing, and it didn't. It went perfectly without a hitch. And then other times when it should have gone smoothly, and it didn't. So it's an interesting journey, that being an artist and a musician, and it's not like it's not a production line where you can guarantee there's going to be a result. You make yourself vulnerable and very prone to fall, like on a tightrope. It's every moment you step out there, and that's why it really is a calling. So who knows?
Is there anything that stands out from, say, the video shoot for All the King's Horses or Satisfaction Guaranteed or Radioactive? Any cool story?
Radioactive was the first video, of course, the first single. And that was very meaningful because it was shot at the London Hammersmith Odeon right after we'd done our first London shows there in '84, which is even before the album was released. And I'm still feeling my way with the band and my place in it. And I was playing it kind of safe, just not moving around too much. But so the manager, Phil Carson, who goes way back to the Atlantic and the Zeppelin days, said, move around, Tony, be yourself, just have fun. And then so we did one take of me just being me, and that was the one they ended up using, and there's all those pictures of me jumping around, doing the Franklin sidestep dance and the smiles and all that. And so it was a lot of fun. And so that kind of set the tone, really. I guess they wanted some youthful energy and, just a little different vibe on it. And so it was really cool. They allowed me to be myself. All the King's Horses was... so that was very much a concept storyline, which we weren't involved in all of that. That was Aubrey Powell who had the vision of all that. And then we just shot performance footage on that. So there was nothing to stand out about that. Satisfaction Guaranteed, well, that was shot on the day we were coming home after the last tour, or the day I was going home. And we hadn't played Satisfaction Guaranteed on the tour because it was a difficult song we needed two guitars, and it was really challenging for Paul to play the guitar and sing it at the same time. To his credit, he would shredded that so he could do it. I think we started including it towards the end, but it was starting to take off, and Atlantic wanted us to do a video because it was going to be released as a single. And so my bassers had already gone home or were in freight or wherever they were. And so they managed to find a fretless precision bass. This is in New York City. So it's not my bass in the video. And then we'd seen Les Paul a few days ahead, so he was doing a cameo in the video. And they shot it in a really hot warehouse on the top floor of a New York building. No air conditioning, and it's early June, so it's really hot. You've got all the lights and the humidity and everything, and so it's the sweaty vibe, swampy feel that you get in that is surreal because everybody is sweating. And I just remember we did a few takes, and that was it. That's all we had, and then I basically had to get on a plane after that to go home. So it was pretty wild, really.
Now, I wanted to kind of get this down as far as the timeline. Was Glenn Hughes originally slated to front Blue Murder?
No.
Okay. There was never any connection with Glenn Hughes and Blue Murder?
Yeah, his name was probably mentioned, and John and I knew him, and I think Cozy, of course, Cozy Powell, the original drummer. So
sure,
there might have been. He could have come up in a conversation, but it was never more than that. I mean, the Ray Gillen that went further, but that went further.
And that's what I was going to ask next. I just saw that out on the internet, and I thought, wow, I hadn't heard the Glenn Hughes yet, but I knew Cozy and Ray Gillen were originally in the band. And, of course, I've heard, I just not too long ago interviewed Greg Chasin, so I, researched and then found that one demo of Too Late and thought, God, that was just fantastic. Did you guys record more songs with Cozy and Ray?
Cozy definitely played on some of the early demos. That would be Riot, Tommy, Out of Love, possibly Blue Murder, the track. I think that was it. And those might be on the internet, but I believe that's with John singing. I have to look on that. For some reason, I'm thinking the phrase "early voyages" or "early something." It's the demos, and that is Cozy playing that. Ray, we tried him on a bunch of songs, including those that I just mentioned. And the thing with Ray is that John had a vision. There was a sound and everything that John has and that Ray has, and there were some things that Ray did phenomenally, but there were some where John just was showing Ray, and it was just like, it was right, it was perfect. And there's nothing against Ray, it was just a different sound and a vibe. And John wanted Ray to be more involved in some of the writing too, and Ray's writing is different to what John's vision was. So, they probably, I wasn't there the whole time, but I was there a fair bit of it. John and Ray probably were together for about 3 months, really trying to make it work. And it was because we wanted to make it work, because we love the guy, sweet guy, and obviously very, very talented. But it wasn't any of that. It was just that musically we were just slightly different, and it was John had this vision, and just once again, every time John sang, it was exactly what it needed. So it was a tough decision, and but I don't think any of those demos lasted. I think with Ray singing, other than the Too Late song, which didn't end up on the album anyway.
And Too Late, is that with Cozy, or is that Carmine playing drums?
That's Cozy.
That album also was the first time, I think, that Bob Rock produced a record, correct? I mean, I know he had been involved with a ton of records, but he was an engineer, I think, up to that point. Was that his first big production?
I don't know. That's a very good point. I didn't think so, but now that you mention it that way, I truly don't know.
Yeah, because he was Bruce's engineer, through the Bon Jovi record to the Loverboy, all those giant records. And then from there, I think he got the very next one was the Motley Crue record.
Dr. Feelgood, yeah, absolutely. So you might be right. And I know that John had worked with Bob Rock on the Whitesnake 87 album. They cut a bunch of tracks up there in Vancouver, and Bob was the one that was getting John's sound, and so for that reason alone, I mean other reasons, but of course, but he wanted Bob on board because he was the one that got that great sound, and so yeah, you might be right. You might be right with that, actually.
What was it like working with Bob Rock, maybe as compared to other producers you've worked with? Is there anything that kind of stands out?
He was great. He was a musician, and so he knew how to play and knew how to hang and relate to us. And he was, for my part, now those were cut separately, but we went in and played it as a band first, and so we got the overall vibe and cut to a click, and then Carmine went in and we cut all the drums. And Bob was great because he brought out the best in everybody's performance without feeling like he's getting on them. He was just very, very good with relationships and bringing out the best in the players. So Carmine was swore he had no more drum fills left after that album. He used them all up. But he had a way of just like, yeah, that's cool, but we need to do this. Of course, this was all on tape, no Pro Tools, so everything had to be played. And so, but with me, once all the drums were done, then I went in. I was in there for like 4 days, just laying down bass on everything. And everything was very quick for me, and we probably did 2 or 3 songs a day, and it was very focused but relaxed too. And he was the same with me, but I was full of ideas and full of stuff, and I knew exactly what I wanted. I just remember him, just saying, yeah, that's the one, or let's do that one again, but nothing too much, because I felt like I had a lot to prove, and so I put everything into that. And we were very well rehearsed going into that as well. So that was cool. But he's great because he has the ears, he has the producer's awareness, but he's a musician too. So a great combination.
Yeah. How long did that album take to record?
It was a drawn-out process, but not the initial tracks. What was going on was probably 2 weeks for the final drums, 4 days for the bass, and then it was mostly rhythms and some leads. But for the next, I don't know, to be honest. It could have been 3 weeks, 4 weeks, but we weren't keeping a very rigorous schedule during that time. We were just as the vibe happened. Except Jelly Roll. Now that was one song that happened very, very quickly. I'd actually shown John the open D tuning, D flat as it happened to be, which is one that Roy Harper had shown me, and so John took it on the acoustic guitar and went away and wrote Jelly Roll. And then we got a call late at night. John wanted Carmine to come in and lay down drums, and we were out and having a few beverages, and Carmine was, he was not as focused as he would want to be, but if you ask him now, but he went and laid it down in one shot. They actually punched in, so there's two halves to it. It was like the up front section and then the ballad section. And he punched in somewhere during the big monster long fill. Right. That joins the front section to the end section. And then played it to the end. So that was all essentially one take with a break in the middle. And then same for me with the bass. I just kind of laid it down. It's one of those parts that just emerged, and the whole song was like that. So, but then John still was not convinced that he wanted to do vocals. So vocal tryouts went on for quite a while. Even then, they took the album back to LA and kept working on that. And actually, was the last time that I saw Ray as well. He dropped by the studio just to say hi, and. He wasn't looking to sing. He was just, we remained friends. So he was coming to check it out. And so, to be 88. Yeah,
and so the vocal search was still continuing even after Ray was out of the picture.
Oh, yeah. They tried out a bunch of guys in Vancouver. Talk about expensive auditioning, people live in the studio, in the recording studio. So, yeah, they were still trying out guys, and then...
Was there anybody that was known that you tried out, or were they just unknown guys?
Mostly unknown. There might be a few guys. I wasn't in on a lot of that. That would drive me nuts, just trying out different guys. They no real name guys. Although Tony Martin was involved in the writing of some of the lyrics of Valley of the Kings, and there was I think there was talk for a second that him trying out, but. Which you may have done when we were cutting that one, but that's before we actually started the album recording proper. And it was just like, he's a great singer, but it wasn't the right sounds. It's more of a bluesy kind of feel, that we needed. And Tony Martin isn't that. He's more got that kind of Dio kind of vibe going on. So great singer. And so, that was probably the biggest name. But and then John was still laying down solos and did the vocals in LA. So stretched out, it's probably over the period of about 9 months, but actual recording time was maybe a couple to 3 months.
After the first album, it seems like that was successful, and you guys tour And then what happens on the second album where you and Carmine don't complete the recording, and then I don't think you guys did the tour, right?
No, I played on 7 of the 11 tracks on Nothing But Trouble. It's a great album. Well, what happened? I mean, you say it was a success, and it was to a degree, but there's always a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas with Blue Murder, and to be honest, it should have been way bigger than it was. And there were some mistakes that were made in hindsight, not all of our own doing. Some of them, things are out of your control, but I mean, that to me should have been the biggest band of that era. And
what do you think the mistakes, sorry to interrupt, but what were some of the, like, label mistakes, just not marketing it right, or what?
Yeah, some decisions that were made. I mean, Valley of the Kings had a huge push on MTV, but here's the thing. Valley of the Kings was not available for people to buy as a single. And it should have been, or it should have been a different song in hindsight. And so what happened was that MTV played the crap out of it, and then, but then they were really bent out of shape that it was not available for people to buy as a single, which, whatever, it's like fine. But when Jelly Roll came out and was starting to cross over and get a lot of airplay, MTV wouldn't touch it. And so because MTV wouldn't touch it, it didn't cross over to the mainstream radio and get all of that airplay. If it had done, I'm convinced that song would have been huge. And so anyway, that was, all of that was very tough for John. He put so much heart and soul into this, and went into some periods of depression and after all of that, and it took him a good few years to really get through that. And in the meantime, a little band called Nirvana came out and turned the music business and everything completely on its head. And so Blue Murder's music was then completely out of vogue. And so, it was just, to be honest, it was just, John needed to sort stuff out, and it was taking a little bit too long for Carmine and myself. And so, we hung in there as long as we could. And then it was just like, okay, John, we just need you to finish this off and do your thing. And it was tough because they're my family, still are, and we love the music, but it's like nothing was getting done, and we couldn't wait. And so we played our parts. I played on 7 of the tracks, and still love the album, and John and I still jam some songs from that album. And but yeah, it kind of run its course, and then we went on our different ways for a few years.
I'd imagine that it was hard for him, not only the Blue Murder stuff, but also that how Whitesnake ended. He had songwriting credits on that album, but he was supposed to be on that tour.
Yeah, financially he did fine, but once again, two situations where he should have had the recognition for his immense talent, and both times it didn't happen. So yeah, you're right. It wasn't only Blue Murder. It was like finally sinking in that all the Whitesnake stuff that he was didn't have the glory from. But so yeah, it was tough. And we've talked about that now, and it was a tough time for all of us. But hey, you live to fight on another day. Did
he ever tell you why he was fired from Whitesnake?
No, not really. And if he did, I mean, I've heard so many different sides of that, and I don't want to speculate because I wasn't there. And I'm dear friends with David and with John. I don't want to get in the middle of that.
It's just so crazy that John wasn't a part of that. I mean, he recruited all the best of the best players. David Coverdale did, but that doesn't give you a writing ability. Often the guys that are phenomenal on their instruments, I've noticed, or say like an Yngwie Malmsteen, they often aren't great songwriters.
Yeah, there's no doubt that John brought Whitesnake and their writing and their presence up to a whole new level. There's no argument against that. Absolutely.
What's John like to work with?
He's great. He can be difficult. He's very focused and doesn't suffer fools gladly. And but and of late, I mean, we have such a great friendship and vibe between us, and always the musical chemistry is the thing that bonds us together. I mean, we always had that thing, that vibe, that chemistry, and so I know he can be difficult, but he has no problem speaking his mind, and if something isn't to his liking, or if it doesn't seem right, then he'll have no problem speaking up with that. And he and I have had our ups and downs, but we get each other. We have so much love and respect for each other that I'll defend him to the end, because he has this reputation of being difficult and awkward, but I understand it. I understand where he's coming from, and it's from maybe it's a perfectionism, maybe it's just something, he knows what he likes and what he wants, and so he has no problem striving for that and speaking up about it. So some people don't like that.
Where does Carmine rank on your list of drummers that you've worked with?
Oh gosh, and I've worked with some amazing drummers. I've been very, very fortunate in that regard, from Chris Slade to Kerry Bozio to Vinnie Caliuta to Greg Bissonette, and oh gosh, I've been very lucky in that regard. Carmine's right up there, and he and I just know each other. We just musically and as people too. It's the same thing with him and I. We just have a lot of love and respect for each other, and we know where each other's going when something's going on musically. We just know it and have that instant understanding of things. So I never like to pick a favorite drummer, because every one of them brings something different to the table, to the equation. And so I have he's definitely up there though. So I love him.
I saw your post that you are available to do sessions, or people can send stuff to you. How does that work? Somebody just sends you the file, and then you lay down the bass track in your studio and send it back?
Yeah, that's about it. And it's been great, because of course the internet is open to the whole world, and so I've had recording sessions from Australia, Japan, Russia, South America, all over Europe, of course. And so, these days, I mean, pretty much everybody has some kind of home recording setup to some degree or another. And I'll have them send over the files, and it's usually like a stereo mix of the drums and guitars, whatever, and just a few files, and then I will play the bass and send it back to them. And so it's I've been doing that since the early 2000s, and some of them have been some big albums, others have been some self-funded artists, everything in between. And so it's been great. I mean, now you can do sessions and have me on there from my home studio, and it's been great. So I thought I'd put that out there because a lot of people don't realize that, and they're not aware of it. That's another aspect of what I do, and I got a great response from that. So yeah, there you go.
And what does that run? Like what is that? Do you charge per song, or how does that work?
I take it case by case. I have my standard rate, which I don't want to say on the air because it varies. But I'm flexible because it would depend on the style of music, on the amount of songs we're doing, and the overall budget. I work with people within reason. So both people, both I and the artist, feel good about it, and You know, it varies. So I don't say this is my way or the highway. I work with people. I mean, I do have my standard rate, but then I'm willing to make it work from there.